Hi, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Passive Pixels, and for the first time, it is a special episode where I'm talking about something I don't even know how I feel about it yet. I already
Mm.
had a 30-minute rant about this show. I'm going to call it a show because if I call it an anime, I'm probably going to start handicapping it to how I feel about it. And I have brought in an expert, a man who decided to have an entire podcast over Neon Genesis Evangelion, along with the other things on his resume, like being the sole person who can bring down Last Stand Media on just a snap of his finger, and no, not former handsome fandom. He still is, at least in
Mm.
spirit. Dustin Furman, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm just drinking some coffee. It's a pretty relaxing morning. Here's the thing, Edwin. I know that you are also a married man, like
Hmm.
I am. And I love mornings with my wife. It's great. But sometimes I like a good morning alone. And so she's at a baby shower. And so I've just been kind of chilling, watching YouTube, drinking coffee. It's been nice.
I don't have to have mornings away from her since she works in office. I'm always working at home, so I just
Mm.
have extended amounts of alone time. So she'll come home and I think, wow, the peace is gone. I'm getting something nice in return, but that peace that I had, that quiet, the ability to go just sit somewhere and not hear anything is gone. But it's
Mm.
still a nice swap.
Right. Yeah, it's not for me. It's not a matter of of peace and quiet, but it's a matter of I don't know, just feeling the freedom to do literally whatever, not literally, but whatever I desire. Just because when especially on a Saturday during the weekdays, during the mornings we usually have our separate things. Some days
Yeah.
she's at home, some days she's at work. But there's always commitments. And so Saturday is like, for the most part, commitment free. So having that freedom is that she already has something. It's nice.
The Saturday
But
for you is the Sunday for me. Saturday, I need to go get things done. Sunday is, look, let's just sit down. I might knock out an entire TV show. You want to keep watching Mad Men? Or at least quote unquote watch, which means looking over our phone. So, Sunday,
mhm,
I'm right there with you. Now,
that's right.
I tried to structure the current conversation that we're going to have because I am ridiculous about just going on for way too long. So I want to try to hit the beats about Neon Genesis Evangelion as well as the end of Evangelion so we can kind of figure out where the hell I feel with this by the end of it. And at least from everything that I've heard, Neon Genesis, no, I gotta stop calling it that. It just makes more sense to call it Evangelion.
That's what most fans say, I think.
Oh crap! Okay, then that sounds like I should probably say
Well,
Neon Genesis instead.
here's the thing, though, Edwin, is that the rebuild series are just called Evangelion. So that you could get into a little bit of a semantics problem. But for the state of this podcast, I think we can safely just call it Evangelion, and people know that we're talking about the original anime run and the film End of Evangelion.
The thing that wards me off from that is the fact that you said that fans will call it Evangelion, and I don't know if I'm a fan yet. Maybe by the end of it, I can call
Mm.
it Evangelion. So I'm not going to lambaste myself if I interchange the names back and forth.
Mhm.
So
That's fair.
at least from what I've heard, there is a good amount of people who I've seen say that Neon Genesis is one of those animes that you don't jump in with immediately. I've seen kind of conflicting ideas about why that is. Either the fact that it's a bad one to start off with because you need a bit of context for anime, or because you watch it, love it so much that it screws up your ability to watch anything else after that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Edwin, is that the beginning of the show feels. I mean, I guess at the time, and it came out in the 90s, we weren't so heavily drowning in anime tropes. But the show begins and it feels pretty, maybe like a weirder mecha anime. We're coming from Gundam and other giant robot related animes that were quite prevalent, especially in the 80s and the 90s. And so I feel like if you were drawn to mecha anime, then instantly you're probably going to be on board with Evangelion because it's kind of follows a little bit of that formula. Maybe not the formula, but you can see like, oh, this has giant robots, giant enemies, people piloting a giant robot. It has kind of that cliche to it. So I think it's kind of, there's two types of people that when they started, there's anime fans, they're like, okay, because anime fans are definitely okay with tropes, which is, that's a whole nother conversation that we can get into.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. It's going to be basically the entire complaint section.
Okay, yeah. But on the other hand, there's people that maybe have never watched an anime or have lightly watched some anime here and there, that maybe they watch the beginning and they're like, this seems kind of like all the other stuff. And so I can understand that being off-putting to some people. So it's a weird one for sure when it comes to the beginning.
So the entire thing about that question is just that I think it might be important to explain how I came to this, which of course the obvious one is you told me about it, and of course my love of Metal Gear and Nier brought me here as well. But I think more of a further back question, as in what exactly is my experience of anime that brought me to my confusion, and then after that I want to hear exactly how you became King Weeb. Like, how many people did you lob off at the neck using a guillotine to get to the crown that you got to, right?
Right.
So at least for me, it's always weird to remind myself that we're around the same age, so I'll be interested to see if yours deviates. My history with anime is that I was an absolute weep in middle school. Absolute. One of the first pictures. Oh, no, you didn't know this. Okay.
I did not expect this.
Oh, man. Okay. You know what? While I'm doing this, I'm going to connect a hard drive, and just because I thought about it as I was going to sleep, this is the first episode I'm ever going to change the thumbnail for. And it's going to be one of the first pictures my mom ever took. Now I might get away from the mic a little bit to connect for the USB. It is one of the first pictures my mom ever took on her digital camera back in 2007. It is a picture of me at 13 or 14 in a soccer field wearing a Naruto headband around my...
Oof.
Yeah. So
I don't like to use oof because I think it's overdone. I've been trying to use it less, but let me tell you, that's an oof.
I completely agree. There's never been a moment that you could say that would fit better. I can assure you of that. So that is the kind of thing that we're talking about. Huge weeb in middle school. There's at least one friend that was huge about manga, huge about anime, and I went into the library and saw, wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me that as a middle schooler, it's socially acceptable for me to read picture books again? Fuck yeah. Why am I not going to do this? So Naruto, as many other people, was my gateway drug. I tried watching Bleach, reading Bleach. There's a whole bunch of other just garbage that I had small samplings for, but Naruto was my shit. After that, I remember trying a whole bunch of stuff on Toonami. I'm a dumb kid that didn't realize I could like more than one stuff. So when it was between Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, I went, I need to figure out if Pikachu's going to ever learn Earthquake. I'm watching Pokemon. Fuck Dragon Ball Z. So,
whoa.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an idiot, an absolute fool as a child. And at this point, I'm never going back. So no one ever asked me about Dragon Ball Z. Basically, that is that. I remember by the time that, by the way, I guess spoilers for Naruto, but who cares? By the time Jiraiya died, I told myself, damn, look at that. Holy shit, they're moving the story. That's incredible. They're about to end it. And then that was not even the halfway point. And I hate read Naruto for about 250 chapters. Everyone tried to recommend me anime during that same period. I became so bitter that I just hated anime in every single facet. Most recently, my experience is watching half of Demon Slayer and still thinking, wow, I hate everything except the water animation. That's my anime history. So,
okay,
Dustin, tell me, how did you become King Weeb? What sort of Game of Thrones politicking did you do to get to the crown?
Well, here's the thing. I've said this publicly, at least if we're talking in the lore of the Last Stand Discord. I'm not the weebiest of them all, by a long shot. In fact, my wife Holly is probably significantly more of a weeb than I am when it comes to actual anime. And many people in the Discord know way more, have watched way more, played way more, whatever. But sometimes a king is not the person, he's not the most powerful soldier. He's not necessarily the smartest, but he's the one that can bring everybody together. And I think that's how I've gained this crown of the Weeb King, the self-proclaimed Weeb King. because anyone can self-proclaim themselves as a king, but they're
Hmm.
not a king unless they have followers. So, okay, I've taken this joke too far. I started watching anime. I think I was. I mean, it's weird because I remember being really little, and I think my mom got me like a tape at like the dollar store or something really cheap. It was this really shitty anime called. It's not even anime. It was a movie. It was called Serendipity. Let me see if I can find this. Serendipity, and it was like really like real bad animation, really bad dub. But I think back to that movie, and I think that kind of like opened the possibility of anime, and the fact that that was like the first thing that I ever watched that was Japanese animation.
Mhm.
And then in like kindergarten or first grade, I can't remember, a friend
Oh,
had
that
told me.
early. Okay.
Yeah, well, a friend had told me, is like, you got to check out this show called Dragon Ball Z because it has lots of
Ah.
fighting. And this was also around the same time, of course, that
Hmm.
Pokemon was huge. It's bigger now than it was then, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels different. Maybe just the hindsight of like, nostalgia or whatever.
It's because we're old.
But yeah. So I started checking out Dragon Ball Z and I loved Pokemon. And so that was kind of the gateway for me was, and you had mentioned it, Toonami
Hmm.
was huge in that there were a lot of shows that I just kind of, you're a kid, you don't really, it's not necessarily about the long overarching story, but just
Yep.
like was that 20 to 30 minutes interesting? So like, I don't know anything about the show Tenchi Muyo, but I remember watching it and being like, oh, that was fun, whatever happened there. So I always ebbed and flowed with anime as I got older, but like I can remember in high school, it was either high school or junior high that I watched all of Full Metal Alchemist, and that was like a huge, huge thing for me. That show was so, so awesome, incredibly important. And then I always liked Japanese games growing up. Obviously,
Oh,
there's a big
yeah.
thing about me being the only Kingdom Hearts fan on Sacred Symbols. And so that was a big part of it. And so now it's interesting because my taste in anime has changed significantly, and the things that I'm drawn to are so different. And I think that I'll probably leave it here because I think there's a good discussion about tropes in anime and the current state of anime in general, just because it's so, at least to me, it feels so incredibly different than it was 10 years ago, even. Like, just absolutely a different world.
Okay. Because I feel like it adds context. I'm 25. You're 26 or 27, right?
I am 27. Sorry, I muted myself for a second, and it sounded like there was a longer pause of trying to remember my age.
That is fine. Trust me, I don't remember either. It's only because it's such a nice, clean number 25. As soon as I turn 26 in the next month, I'm going to forget. The only reason I'll remember is because it's going to be me getting off of my parents' insurance. That's the only reason I'll remember.
Oh, dude, that's a horrible moment. At least for me, I mean, well, we don't have to get into that, but it sucks.
Oh, no, trust me, I am already annoyed. Okay, so at least when it comes to Neon Genesis, I'm going to make it a point now to say that unless I become a fan by the end of it. So, at least for me, I always had 3 anime that I told myself I'd watch before I threw the entire fucking thing away, right? One of them was always going to be Neon Genesis because I knew about the influences. The other one was going to be Cowboy Bebop, and the other one's going to be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Like, that's it. After that, I'm not letting anyone recommend me anything ever again. Even if they try to drop the card of Evangelion, like, I'm still not going to do it. However, movies, for some reason, look, people can call me a hypocrite, but screw it. I try to make an argument saying that anime movies don't bother me because I see them as foreign films. And
Mm.
so far, almost every anime movie that I've seen has been some cool shit. Then again, I haven't ventured that far out of Ghibli, but then again, I don't consider Ghibli, but fine, I'll give it for now. Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and Perfect Blue. Like, I have barely ventured out, but for some reason, those just avoid my complaints. So,
So you
go
haven't
for it.
even watched Your Name then, which is like the biggest pop culture anime of the last like 5 years.
The thing is that Your Name and In Conjuncture, Weathering You, both of those just to me feel way too new. And at
Mm.
least from with the older anime movies that I've seen, I just like those art styles more. And the further modern you get, the more that they bother me because it does feel too computerized. It doesn't feel like someone did draw this, yes, but I don't feel it. Plus, I'm always annoyed with the fact that they tried to take 2D images and then try to make them 3D or put a 2D image in a 3D world. And uh, I'm pretty sure that,
Sounds like you haven't seen Your Name.
oh, you know what?
That's all I'm going to say. I know what you're talking about when you're talking about like CG infused anime.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the case with those films, but we can
Dust-
proceed.
Dustin, you son of a bitch. Just because I love at least the. Well, I'm going to show my hand. At least since I love the last third of Evangelion, you have credit to burn. It's on the list at some point then.
Okay, wait. I have one question though.
Mm,
So,
mm.
part of me says that you should. Well, oh no. Here's the question: how do you feel about romance stories in general? Like, are you interested in watching a good romance movie? Not a chick flick, romance.
Okay. I'm going to break it in a different way so I can answer it. Rom-coms for me make me want to strangle the nearest cute puppy that I can find. Like
Mm,
rom-coms, they're just the most trope-laden genre that I've just basically said that is a no-go zone. For me, the closest thing that I get is 500 Days of Summer and Crazy Stupid Love because at least those movies tend to play with the formula a little bit that I'm like, okay, you tried something. Thank you. The only other movie that I can think that even fits close enough to it would be Sing Street, but I don't want to count that one because while yes, it is a love story, on the other hand, it also has some really bitchin' new 80s music that I can't ignore that that's probably the bigger influence of why I like that movie.
That's the thing. You haven't watched any like anime that has romantic qualities, really, or had romance as more of a front-facing tone, right?
Correct. I haven't seen any of that or anything that would be even close to considered a slice of life.
Maybe okay. So you don't necessarily. You could check out something that's low commitment instead of like a whole movie like Your Name or Weathering with You on Netflix. His earlier movie, Makoto Shinkai, he directed both of those movies. There's a movie called Garden of Words. It's 1 hour. It's practically a short film. That might be worth a look to broaden your horizons.
My wife does love romance and she hates that I don't care about it. So I'm going to write that one down and just leave it for her. I'll put it into her consideration because I already know my answer would be no.
If
So
she likes romance, I mean, she should definitely watch Your Name. Which Your Name, it's not even. I wouldn't even classify it necessarily as this is a romance anime. It's like a fantasy, modern day fantasy that has romantic qualities to it.
ooh, okay, no, Dustin, no, you have landed on the key words. The fact that it doesn't feel like anime, okay, never mind. I can give it a try because Perfect Blue, out of the three anime movies that I said, Perfect Blue is the one that feels the least bit of anime out of all of them.
Okay, Edwin, we've been on this call for 20 minutes. Here is what I've gathered. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Mm.
Tell me if I'm wrong. The intent of this show is never for, I don't want it to be like me defending anime, and I don't think you want it to be that way either.
Absolutely not.
But I feel like you've experienced a lot of shonen anime in particular, a lot of heavily serialized and designed for mass market Japan. Shonen comes from, of course, Shonen Jump, which
Of
is
course.
like make it as long as fucking possible,
Yep.
like Naruto or Inuyasha or whatever. But I think that now, with Evangelion, you're being exposed to something that is, I mean, I would think that you would think is pretty different, but still has some of those tropey qualities. But in reality, I mean, someone could tell me I'm wrong here, but Evangelion and a lot of these classic anime are kind of like the origin point of those. At the time, they didn't necessarily feel as tired as they do now. So I don't know if obviously it still is what it is, but maybe a difference in perspective can change a viewpoint on it.
I am ready to accept that I've probably only been given shonen because I can blame family and friends for all this. They have no taste. They are Philistines. They are people that I have just chosen to just stop listening to because they've led me astray every single time. My best friend told me to watch Terraform Mars, and I remember that being the worst moment in college for the 5 years I was there. Like, that's how much I fucking hated that anime. That college, the moments of college and the stress for all of that was nothing compared to me watching Terraform Mars for an hour and a half in a study room and thinking, I just want to die. I hope that
Mm,
humanity gets wiped off the face of the earth so when aliens come to visit us, they can't find Terraform Mars and think they probably deserved it.
damn.
Yeah, I fucking hate it. But yes, I'm willing to admit that probably the fact that I've only gotten shonen recommendations might be the reason why I have such a bias with it because it is the most trope laden. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's the thing for me is that I am at the point where I don't like almost any shonen anime at all anymore. Like, for example, probably the biggest, I mean, Demon Slayer obviously right now is huge, but before Demon Slayer, the big anime was My Hero Academia. And
yeah.
I watched a good amount of that. And I just can't, I no longer can get down with, like, hey, there's a fight happening and it takes 6 episodes to get through it. I can't do that anymore. I'm not drawn to that kind of anime. And the good part is there's plenty of other anime out there that can fulfill what I want from the medium. Is anime a medium? Is it a genre? I don't know. But
I call it
that's
a
the
genre to
thing.
insult it.
Yeah. The thing for me now is that I have nothing against if you like shonen. I mean, shonen is clearly the popular choice
Yeah.
of anime. People want tropes. They want the fan service. They want 10 episode long battles. That's not what I'm looking for at all in anime. So it's funny because I feel like you and I probably have a much more similar taste when it comes to this than maybe we would originally think.
You're not wrong. That's the problem. I'm so ready to call anime a genre just because, well, yes, one, it's fun to insult it, and two, because I just want good stories. And Evangelion at the end of it gave me that. I fucking love existentialism. I love being uncomfortable with yourself. I love depression. I love sad shit. And Evangelion just gives me that in spades. And the problem is that whenever it's anime, there are certain things that are just going to come along with it. Exactly like you said, fights, 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 fights. Comedy for me, that's just not going to land. The horny shit that I don't know why I'm so sensitive to it with anime. Like, I watched American Pie when I was 4 or 5.
Mm,
Like that doesn't bother me. If I watch it in a movie, I'll sit there. My parents are there. I don't care. We understand what's going on there. We're not gonna really freak out about it. But for some reason, anime, it just feels so much worse for me. And the other thing as well is that I don't like that anime is probably made on a budget of a ham sandwich and like 2 sticks of gum, and one of them has already been chewed. Like, that's something
right.
that just bothers me so much that I think anime movies tend to bypass it. I hate just being able to see behind the curtain. I can look at this scene and go, "Oh, you're freeze framing on here. Oh, you didn't draw a 4 by 3 picture or a 16 by 9 picture. You probably drew like a 21 by 9 picture. So then you can pan across it and make it seem like it's motion. Hey, add a couple of sound effects. It's cheaper than making another animation for the movement. Just draw the picture and then pan the camera back and then play some sounds of like children laughing. There you go. Boom. The audience will never know that we were trying to cheap out here." There's so many
Right.
things with anime that are like that bother me that I saw in the beginning of Evangelion, and it bothers me to my core whenever I can tell. Well, at least I don't know if it's the case for Evangelion, but I know for Shonen, okay, I jumped in. So, of course, Naruto, I literally just read the entire manga the entire way. By that point, I was hate reading it. I didn't even pay attention to the anime, fuck filler, and all that. But that's not part of the complaint because you can avoid the filler. But I remember jumping in for that final just animation of Naruto and Sasuke just fighting each other. And I remember thinking, holy shit, this is gorgeous. I I have no idea. I'm going to be talking out of my ass for animation, but maybe they were drawing on 24s. Maybe not even. Oh, wait, sorry, not no twos. I don't remember the terminology. I'm going to say they were drawing on twos, but there was
Yeah.
some fluid animation that was going on there. I was like, you guys are talented. Can you do that all the time instead of just saving your entire budget for the fight and then everything else going, I think he's over here in the other room. Do you think we can just like pay him an extra bowl of rice and see if we can just get him to draw a still or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's complicated, and I have limited knowledge about this.
Mhm.
So, if anyone listening, take what I say with a grain of salt. But it's always weird because anime in its origin was low budget because it was kind of like a new thing. It wasn't sure whether or not it would be profitable.
Hmm.
And then it turned out that it was, and now a lot of anime is made. A lot of the problems with modern anime isn't necessarily budget, it's time constraint. Like, the anime business lives to fuel the manga industry in Japan. For example, an anime I just watched is called Blue Spring Ride,
Hmm.
and it has one season, but there's way more manga after the season is over. The problem is the timing was off, and so the manga is over now, and the anime is not done. But no studio wants to pick it up because there's no motivation, because there's no marketing synergy to sell manga for it. So it's weird how this industry has come along, in the fact that it's like it started low budget and then became time constrained and feels low budget, and probably in some, depending on the scenario, is low budget just to fuel, manga sales. It's very disappointing, and that's why more so now I'm drawn to, like, specifically Your Name or other stuff, because it's big budget and it's not time constrained, and I think that's maybe why you're drawn to or more accepting of anime films, because they have that budget, that time behind them. But one last thought about that is, at least what's interesting to me about Evangelion is Gainax, the company that made it, by the end was like going bankrupt, which is weird because it's like this weird story of them like not having a lot of money to finish it, and then like the huge success of it, people being mad about the ending to the point that they remade the ending with a film that was so popular in Japan that the theaters were standing room only. People were standing in the back of the theater to watch End of Evangelion. So it's weird too, because you can see, I feel like this is kind of maybe similar to Yoko Taro and Nier.
Oh, yeah.
In that Nier has some tropey stuff that gets people in the door, right? It's got the hot anime girl with heels. It's got the way the characters talk sometimes, whether it's with the other Yorha units or whatever, can kind of feel like pretty standard anime shit. And that gets people in the door. Giant robots fighting gets people in the door. Not that it's not important to the story, but now that I've seen Evangelion, I think like 2.5, 3 times now. And it's amazing to me that Hideteki Anno was able to, like, he clearly had this vision and these concepts that he wanted to portray. And he's very much like Yoko Taro in the fact that his life experience, you can see so much in Evangelion, which is one of the reasons that makes it so cool. But the way that he was able to kind of start tropey in a way and fulfill this vision and fulfill these ideas within this anime is what makes it so special. I don't even know what train I'm on at this point, so I'm gonna throw it back to you.
What I was going to say is that from the minor bit of research that I did, not much, like literally by research, I mean 3 different YouTube videos that I had on my watch later list. It doesn't seem like there was a plan, at least from what I had seen. It seemed that he was writing the episodes one after another, and then he got depressed, and then that's when the show started doing those interesting weird shit. Like whenever the angel popped up that was just a human being, that apparently was part of the depression. He was writing these episodes one after another, and then was only when he got depressed that I was interested.
Mm.
And it feels really wrong because it's like, wow, you really tore yourself up for this. I love this. Can you keep tearing yourself up so I can get more shit like this, please? But
Mm.
that is what I had seen, and it it's one of those things that you landed on something so beautiful, so wonderful, so that's my shit, that I can't understand how is it that this wasn't in the plans before. Because I want to get your opinion on this, because for me, at least with the first, let's be kind, let's say 16 episodes, the first 16 episodes, I don't see any hints for the first half that the second half is going to go that way. Like, the first half feels so very mecha anime. It feels so much like, hey, we got another angel, let's beat it up, put all the budget in the actual fights, put the least amount of budget in them just hanging out in the apartment talking to Pen Pen, which, by the way, Pen Pen is the fucking best. I'm
Mm.
just going to say that absolutely. Pen Pen, all my complaints about Evangelion, Pen Pen is excluded from all of them.
Yeah, Pen Pen is great. Hold on, let's take a step back here. So you're
Mhm.
saying you don't see. I'm believing that he wrote it as he went, but I don't. I think that it's clear that there's a plan. I mean, there's.
Hmm.
I think it's like episode 1 or 2 where they talk about the Human Instrumentality Project, like. Which it's funny because it's so cryptic in the beginning that I didn't even realize that it was mentioned so early on. The second time I watched it, I was like, holy shit, they talk about what happens at the end of the show at the very beginning, which you don't know what the Human Instrumentality Project is. You don't
Hmm.
know who Seeley or C, whatever you want to call them. We don't know who they are or what their motivations are, but
Hmm.
so I can believe that he was writing them as he went, but I think he had a document or something like, here's the beats, here's what is
Hmm.
going to happen. I will fault it in the fact that there are some things that are not explained in the story that they tried to fix either with supplemental material. Kind of sounds like
Hmm.
another thing that you like called Near.
Oh,
Um,
I've never heard of it.
or, they either try to explain with supplemental material or it's just like, we don't know the answer to this, but it really doesn't matter. Like, for example, there's kind of like a mystery around why Shinji's mom fused herself with Ava Unit 1.
Hmm.
Like, we don't know really what her motivation was behind that. There's like theories that like she was trying to work around Seeley or something like that. And it's like, it's a question and maybe something that should have been written, but it doesn't like ruin it because of it.
The thing is that with Evangelion, for me, there is so much that I'm pretty sure I missed because, like I said, let's be kind, the first half just was not speaking to me at all. I mean, I even asked you, like, when does it get good? And I think the answer is 16 or 17. That's the point that I finally peeked up and went, oh, wait, something interesting's happening. Okay, I think I should probably pay attention now. But man, that first half, I just kept thinking, this is just anime. Another thing that I didn't even include in my complaints is that I'm very sensitive to music. I can hear music and my brain tunes in immediately to what it is. I watched The Quiet Place Part 2 yesterday in theaters, and man, my audio loving ass was loving watching that. Like, I'm that sensitive when it comes to it. And Evangelion, I kept hearing the music return back where it's like, oh, here's the fight scene song. I hear this. Oh, here's the comedy scene song. I can hear this. And at that point, I feel like I just tuned out because I would hear that and I'm like, okay, I know what direction we're going. You're probably cueing people to be like, oh, you're ready to laugh. Oh, you're ready to see the fight. It cues up to me, oh, stop paying attention. You don't really care about this.
Well, how do you feel about the fact then? So, yeah, there is some of the tropey stuff, like you said, the slice of life music, the
Mhm.
like,
Yep.
I know exactly
Yep.
what you're talking about. But it is interesting that the show, especially, I'm trying to remember whether it's in the final episodes or if it's in the end of Evangelion, where they kind of like comment on the tropey scene where it's like I'm trying to remember where they're like going to school together. Am I remembering this correctly?
Yes, there is, I think, an episode where they. No, it's around the end of the first episode where they just break apart and they go to a school. And I remember thinking, I just want nothing more than to run headfirst into a brick wall that has knives embedded in it. I hate this.
So it's interesting because I feel like it kind of comments on the own tropey nature of itself by
It
the end.
does.
I'm just trying to remember what happens exactly. But
So it's them just hanging around in the school. They're basically handling it like slice of life. If people don't know what slice of life is, imagine like the first 10 minutes of Yu-Gi-Oh. That's basically what they're doing. Oh yeah, I forgot I mentioned I watched Yu-Gi-Oh too, but whatever. That's not really anime. That's trash to try to sell you cards. But you're not wrong. It's a commentary, but for me, it did go on for way too long where I was like, if you just put them in a school and you put them for a couple of lines here, I don't think I needed like 5 minutes. If you did it in like 2.5, I would get the point.
mm,
Like the other scene where man, I already forgot their names. The two girls in the elevator, that scene
oh,
where
with
it just
Asuka and
freeze.
Ray.
Yes, thank you.
Dude,
That
that's a
one
controversial scene that even Evangelion fans argue about.
I know, and that's something that I found out about, which to be fair, the intention it totally makes sense. The whole scene lasting that long, I get it. You can make your point in a shorter amount of time. It didn't need to be an entire minute. You could have made 30 seconds, and that's already uncomfortable because we're in a place and time where most media that we watch cuts are what 2 or 3 seconds, not even that. 2 or 3 seconds might be an overestimation of how much each scene should last. And back then, if you had 30 seconds on a scene, you already feel uncomfortable. So I remember watching that and thinking, okay, this is a scene, nothing's going on. Okay, this feels cheap now because of the elevator. Oh man, I feel uncomfortable. And then it kept going. And then I just went, oh my God, just get on with it. I don't care anymore. You've lost that little window where I understood your intention. And now I no longer care about your intention. Move on.
Hmm. It sounds like the perspective of someone who was like, I don't want to like this. Not saying that it's not a justifiable opinion, but you've brought up a couple times where you're like, oh, this happened and I fucking hated it. I want to, it's like, I can understand that though. I've done that as well.
Here's the thing that I am going to try to defend my position, at least at that point. That was in the later 20 episodes, which by the
True.
time that we got into 20, I was ready to start like, okay, you know what? You've bought a little bit of time for me. Here you go. Do not go insane with it. And that felt like, yeah, we're going to go insane with it.
That's fair. I mean, that's a debatable scene for sure. I don't even really know how I feel about it. I think that I think it's definitely effective. It made me uncomfortable, and I just like it. Sometimes I like something really weird like that. Like,
Oh,
it's insanely weird. That scene to me is unsettling, like unsettlingly weird. I don't know. Everyone will intake things in different ways, whether it's overemphasized or the amount of emphasis is disturbing. It's just different ways people take it in.
you're nothing you're saying is wrong. I just think that this I wouldn't have minded even just like a small animation, just a little couple of flourishes because my mind keeps going back to this feels cheap feeling and I can't ever stop thinking past the artifice. I just am always watching movies or TV shows or anything, and I can't ever stop thinking about what's behind the camera. So there'll be some things where I look at and I'll go, oh, wow, cool, that's an interesting shot. Wow, the way you color graded this. Wow, fascinating. And the problem is that anime, anytime that I do that for this, I hit that cheap feeling thing. So while even though
Mm.
the elevator scene is effective, it absolutely is. If you want to feel uncomfortable, many people are going to feel uncomfortable with that. But for me, like if you cut that down, it would have probably reached the same effectiveness and not felt like, oh shit, how much did the studio say we had to air? 22 minutes. Fuck, I got 17 minutes. All right, start elongating this. Like I know that's probably not what it is, but that's what it feels like so many times. Now, I think we've gotten a good amount of complaints, haven't we?
Good amount of complaints. I mean, yeah, we've gotten a few for sure, which is fine.
Okay. I think I'm good on the complaining. I think I've explained what it is. How do you feel?
I feel good. I mean, for me, I don't know. I guess I'm still not understanding fully where you're at. So maybe
Hmm.
this is where we get into the things you liked about it.
Yes, correct. And pretty much the final third, the moment that Shinji just starts realizing that he's going to have to kill another human being, the idea of not knowing who your enemies are and everyone going, no, no, what are you talking about? He's an angel, kill him. And Shinji's like, I hate this. The idea that the pods that they can put into the Evangelions can control them, and Shinji is just at the driver's seat forcibly killing this other Eva, the whole thing with the final two episodes, which by the way, when I found out that people hated those final two episodes, I was I couldn't understand how is it that people didn't like it, because those final two episodes are some of the most experimental shit that I love. Like the fact that the literal medium of the animation is breaking down as you're watching it in time with Shinji's mental state deteriorating. I was like, this is incredible. People are thinking that the ending is because of low budget. You know what? It probably was. I think they've refuted it, but enough people have parroted enough that at this point it's become the truth. But
Hmm.
that's how you wind down a budget. You wind it down by doing something so creative within the box that you have. Those final two episodes are incredible. I remember that for the final episode, I told myself, this is going to go in the theater room. I'm not going to just watch this on a 1080p TV. Like, I'm going to make sure the sound system on. I need to see every single little piece of this weird ass animation that is going on.
Right. Well, and I think that a lot of people want to discuss the final two episodes of the series
Hmm.
versus the end of Evangelion. Which one is better? Clearly, this one's better. I like the subtlety of the series. I've never seen it that way. Like, I see
Hmm.
them as two perspectives on the ending. We have like the internal psychological, I mean, I guess it would be sociological as well, since there's other people involved, of the third impact and a more literal representation. So I can understand, though, why people, when there was only the one ending, I can understand why people were justifiably upset. Mainly just because I personally love the complete picture that we get with End of Evangelion. But I guess we haven't even talked about End of Evangelion at all.
Oh no, no, that's the thing. That's gonna be the gushing portion. Like that. Trust me, I have
Mm,
nothing negative about Endo Ava. Like I'm showing my hand. Whatever, it's fine. I do have one question though,
sure.
Dustin. How did you feel? Did you ever watch Lost?
Yes.
Okay. So I always feel like the ending of Lost is a good Rorschach test. How do you feel about the ending of Lost?
I'll be honest, it was many years ago that I watched it. I enjoyed it at the time, and I think I
Mhm.
still do,
Mm,
but hmm,
no, no, that's fine. What I'm trying.
I can't defend it because I honestly don't remember a lot of
No,
Lost
no,
at
no.
this point.
Trust me, I'm not asking of a defense or anything. For me, what I think I've realized is that there is definitely a split between how people take stories. There are some people who are going to take it as either very plot driven or very character driven. And
Right.
Lost, in my view, is a good Rorschach test to let you know where do your priorities lie. And truth be told, I like the ending of Lost because the characters got serviced. The plot did not, absolutely not, but because the characters were serviced, I am still happy with that ending. And I always try to use that as a test. The fact that you say that you love the ending of Evangelion just normal, that lets me know that your priorities are probably character based instead of plot based. Because honestly, by the end of the show, the ah man, I always forget the name. Instrumentality Project, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that is very plot driven. Like whatever that project is, that's just very plot driven. The fact that Shinji himself just has a huge like just character moment during those last two episodes as he has to come to terms with who he is as a person, I think that that is so character driven. When I hate to say it, I think a lot of people whenever they watched Evangelion probably were either watching the anime because one, I guess they understood the plot, but then again, I'm dumb. So either that or it was that it's either that they were just in it because it was anime fights or because they were in it for the plot.
Right. It's funny. I'm thinking about this now because it's so. A lot of these elements are so similar to Near in a lot of
Yep.
ways to
Yep.
me, in the fact that like there's things in the plot of Evangelion that we don't see or know about really. It's like, oh, at the end of Evangelion, they show up and they have all of the Ava units that don't need operated. They're the ones that kind of like start the instrumentality project and stuff like that. They just kind of show up and they're here. We're told it's like, oh, Sele made them and now they're here. They used XYZ from this episode to do that. It's like, okay, I guess I can connect those dots. In Near, it's like all of these robots are, or the androids are here, and there's this project and there's this plan. Devil and Popola are the ones that are kind of shepherding this along. It's like, well, are they just here for these people? Are there multiple
Yes.
sites? Where are these androids being built? Do they just pop them? Like, these are things that you could probably learn and figure out the answers to, but they're not there for the average consumer. So it's so interesting to me because I now that I'm really analyzing it, and I mean, obviously, having this conversation with you, of course, Nier is going to be part of it. Um, it's so amazing to me how similar they are in the way they do the storytelling.
I can tell you right now that it felt like you were just dropping bait for me. Like, these don't have answers. I'm like, no, that's
Yeah,
a different
dude. Well, that's
conversation.
the thing is that it's weird because for me, I can put in a lot of research into fully understanding Evangelion,
Mhm.
and I have, but there are still things that you just have to be like, okay, accept this plot point that is fed to you. It doesn't have an explanation, but that's what happens when you are breaking into a story that has at some point you just got to be told something without an explanation. Like
Hmm.
not everything can be explained. And I think that might frustrate some people, but when you
Hmm.
get into these like very complicated, very philosophical stories, then sometimes that happens. Like there are things that you could probably explain to me in Near. Like
Hmm.
how do the androids in Near Replicant grow? Are they babies? Like how does that happen? I don't get that. I could probably read the fucking book or whatever and figure out how that works, but it's like I don't know. I'm just going to accept that these androids are here. And for some reason, the main character of Nier, which we'll call Nier right now, just is able
Yes.
to grow, even though that doesn't make sense to me.
Damn it. Okay. Fine, fine. I'll take the bait for one. For one. I'm not. I'm. Look, Dustin, I know that I can spin this so hard into near, but I swear, I'm just answering this one.
Mm,
So, replicants do have sex, but they do not have the ability to reproduce. So, what ends up happening is that all the replicants that you know, they get recycled over and over again. Whenever one dies, the Devila and Popola of that area go, oh, that one died. They go to the forest of myth and they tell a tree, hey, can you bring this person back as a baby? And what they do is that they go up to someone's door, they just knock and go, hey, congrats, you're having a baby. The thing is that the replicants have no idea how babies work. They literally just think that Devil and Popola are the storks. So one day they just get a knock on their door like, hey, you're ready for a baby. They grab them, take them, knock them out somewhere, and then just hand them a baby, which was a
right.
person who had died before.
So, but any reasonable person playing Nier Replicant
Correct.
will
Yes.
think about the fact, Nier is a replicant. He's an android, and
He's flesh and blood. He's not an android. It's only Devil and Popola that are androids.
wait, what the fuck?
Yeah, no. So the whole thing about Gestalt and Replicant is that Gestalt is the soul, Replicant is the body that's left behind. Everyone that you know in Replicant is just a soulless human. Well, not even human being. They're just a soulless husk. Devil and Popola are the only androids that you encounter in Replicant, excluding ending E.
I'm so confused now.
Look, drop it. We'll drop it
We'll
because
get
this is an entire direction that we can go, and trust me, this is
right.
a
We'll
place
stay
that
on
we don't want to
topic.
go. Exactly. So NGE, of course, we already got the complaints out of the way. The positives, the last two episodes are just so depressing. The fact
Mm.
that they can so accurately tell everything that Shinji is going through, the fact that that's so character based that I really don't think I care about the plot because everything that you were saying about how there are a couple of plot leaps that you just kind of have to accept, I never even questioned them just because it was moving the characters forward. There are things that you could throw in here that you could literally just say, like, yeah, Shinji's dad is an alligator now. I don't know. If you make it an interesting thing where Shinji just has to emotionally deal with that, like understanding that, I don't know, he's like part alligator or something, and you make it interesting, I could care less about the plot leaps because I am just so character focused that I don't think I care about any of the extraneous stuff. The only reason that the instrumentality project lands for me in End of Eva is because it is just so directly an attack of Shinji's reality that I care.
Real That's interesting that you see. I feel like I view it in a different way. It's what
Hmm,
the ironic part about End of Evangelion is that
hmm.
this the instrumentality project is everything that Shinji would want.
Yes,
He
correct.
no longer has to deal with the social pressure. Everyone is combined. There's no pain. There's no
Mhm,
suffering. No longer does he have to worry about, the hedgehog's dilemma, which is mentioned a
mhm.
few episodes before.
Yes.
But you have the ultimate character growth in the end where Ray uses him and gives him the choice of
Yeah.
like, okay, instrumentality has happened. You have the choice now on, is this what you want? And Shinji ultimately rejects instrumentality. It's like the ultimate symbol of growth where he's like,
Yes.
you know what? This, despite all of the pain and the suffering and all the things that have happened to me and everybody, it is worth it to have our individuality, and ultimately, rejects. And then you have the iconic scene of him.
Yeah.
And I watched a really interesting analysis video. Maybe you watched this one. It's about
Mm.
sex and Evangelion.
No.
Specifically, not, I mean, it has to do with, physical intercourse or sex, we'll say, but also
Mm.
more so just like gender, in that Shinji, man, that scene at the end, we could have a whole podcast about that scene at the end where,
Oh my god, it would just be gushing.
well, dude, it's just so interesting. I mean, there is a lot of sexual elements in that. Like, Shinji's dad is like a man who kind of like he takes advantage of people. He
Yep.
he gets what he wants. He takes advantage of the women in his life. Shinji is
Mhm.
like the complete opposite. And in this world run by men taking advantage of women, he isn't able to get anywhere. And then, like, at the end, it repeats the cycle where he's strangling Asuka. And I mean, that's a whole different thing. But that's what makes the series so great, is that we can look at it through the lens of gender. We can look at it through the lens of depression or sociology or whatever. There's so many different ways you can look at it.
Just we touched on it. We have to go there now.
Let's do it.
Come Sweet Death is
Yes.
one of the moments that I will remember on my deathbed. And this scene alone is something that had me looking inwards and going, do I like this? Can I forgive almost all the time that feels like it was wasted in the show to finally get a little bit interesting, to finally have the ending just be so great as it is, and then watch this movie and have this one scene? And this scene is everything everything I love about Metal Gear and Nier. I love the whole idea of losing one's identity to try to fit into other people. I love the idea of just the medium breaking down and pointing the camera at you and interrogating you. That shit is, I can't believe it. It is just almost tit for tat what 2001's Metal Gear Solid 2 did. They just stole the entire ending of Evangelion when the camera flips over and starts pointing at the real world. I could not believe that Metal Gear first ripped this off, and two, that both versions of pointing the camera back at you are just as effective. Because you would think that if you ripped off an idea, you wouldn't be able to do it as good, but no, both of them are great. The idea that Shinji, so I may have said attack, but I feel like it becomes an attack once he realizes that he's wrong. So, for example, there are some people who are always going to be wishing, like, oh man, like I'm annoyed by this person. No, let's take a good one. I'm annoyed by my wife. I hope that she disappears, and then she does, and you're like, shit, I didn't realize I wanted that.
Mm.
That is what I mean by attack. That Shinji really just did not want to deal with anyone, and every time that he got close, it would just end up bad. The fact that he is given that option and he just realizes that, no, this is not what I wanted. Come Sweet Death is such a scene that I I really hope that in whatever classes are being taught for any of this, I hope this is an example of how the choice of music is so important for a scene, and seeing just all of everyone that we know become human juice to this song is such a horrifyingly beautiful moment that I am I am so glad I got to see it. I'm so glad I put it in the theater room. I had the entire sound system playing. And yet, even with this amount of gushing, I can't explain how much I hate the beginning, and I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I don't
Mm.
even know if it's worth it for me. I can easily tell people, hey, if you are just have low tolerance for anime, I don't recommend it, like, at all. It's a shame, but I can't. But I know that there are people who like anime who's like, yes, absolutely, go for it. You have a tolerance. For me, that I can't ever come to grips with is how I feel about it, because everything it gave me at the end is things that I love, but the things to get there is just and the reason that I am more conflicted about this than I was for either of the Nier games is that both of them have things that you can easily complain about. Automata side quests are annoying as hell. Low point of B run is just annoying as well. By the time that you get to C run, you basically get the entire sequel, and that's where Yokotaro is hiding, where it's the actual good shit that I'm pretty sure he wanted. He just needed a table set to get there. Replicant, repeating the same story over and over and over again gets really annoying, to the point that if you aren't told to save at a certain point and do C and D, at that point you're replaying the game 4 or 5 times. And then the road to E is possibly just the lowest point. There are things that I can complain about those two games, even with the things that I love there. But the reason that my mind can look at that and go, but I'm okay with that, is because there's something about them that makes it so human. Those games are not perfect, but they are the most human pieces of media that I've ever experienced, that I love them. Evangelion just seems like it crosses that line of like error margin for human, where that's where it gets me conflicted.
Yeah, it's man, it's I don't know. I don't like playing this tit for tat here.
Mm-hmm.
With Nier, I don't know. It's weird because I love both of them. Because I just
Yes.
think of like some of the. I just feel like Nier has just as much tropey anime shit as
Yes.
Evangelion does, in a different way, so to say. We don't need to focus on that though. Let's. I wanted to say about. I liked what you said about Come Sweet Death and the Third Impact, because I stand by this, that anyone who's willing to watch the series and the film, you never will ever forget the first time you see the Third Impact.
Yeah.
Specifically, the moment that like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and think about is when you see the Earth and just the wave of orange rush and the green crosses, and you hear the scream of billions of people just bursting into fluid. And we see it has to be like the most insane mind fuck ever. Like, you see it happen to Shinji, the part where he's like screaming. This is happening
Yeah.
to every human left on Earth at the same time.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's so good, and you gotta wonder. I don't know if Damon Lindelof is a fan of Evangelion, but you can see that connection of like this song in a way feels like it should not fit here, but it fits better than any other song could in this moment.
Yes.
Because that's like a thing about either Lost or The Leftovers in the way
Yes.
that it does its music selection. It's like the unassuming, like at first you're like, what? And then you're like, oh, I get it. I don't know if he's an Evangelion fan, but I could see it if he was. So, yeah, honestly, I think that moment alone, I mean, to me is like top 5 cinematic moments, at least for me.
Yes.
I know I would never expect everybody in the world to appreciate that quite like I do, but man, it is unforgettable.
All I know is that that scene had me reevaluate how I felt up to that point. That I told myself, oh man, my voice is sounding weird. That moment had me reevaluate so much about everything that happened prior that I told myself, do I now need to rewatch this? And Dustin, I can tell you right now, that's a big ass W for right there. Like
Whoa.
just over all of this, even with how I feel, you can still take this as the biggest fucking W ever. That one, I even found something I like in it. That alone, the fact that I find something I love in it, and the fact that I'm ready to try to go back and see if my mind changes because of Come Sweet Death. Like, that is the biggest W that you can have, because I can tell you right now, there's a whole graveyard of L's when it comes to people trying to toss anime at me. So, regardless of everything that's said, take it. Here you go.
There we go.
But, man, just the entire ending after it's done and the instrumentality project has failed, just seeing the amount of destruction that's left behind, I can't help but love it. The fact that this moment, Shinji has decided, you know what? No, I'm going to actually be the person that I want to be and try to learn how to connect with other people. That's incredible, because it's, yes, it's almost like they're kind of hammering you a little bit because he says it out loud, but the fact that you get to actually see it,
Mhm.
the one thing that I'm curious about, the ending when he chokes out Asuka. So now, of course, for me, I was like, oh, that's ending A. That's ending A. But what is that supposed to symbolize? Because in my head, I was thinking that actually is weird, because you would think that since you've accepted other people, you probably wouldn't choke her out. You know, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those big, like, it's up to interpretation of
Mm,
the viewer, and there's a lot of different theories about that. I mean, some people will be like, he just suffered the ultimate mind fuck. He may not even know if he's in prime reality at that moment,
mm.
which I guess the question is like, well, then why would you fucking try to strangle somebody in order to try to figure out if you're alive at that moment? I don't know. That's a good question though.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's just so many little things that I feel like I missed that I could easily read into, but I'm pretty sure it's more because it just didn't have me. I mean, pretty much the first half was just me waiting for, like, please make me interested. Oh, having another fight. Okay, I guess I'll sit around for this. I mean, the one Eva fight that had me so in was the one where Asuka, like, basically gets mind fucked into reliving traumatizing experiences with her mom. I was like, this right here is what I want. I don't want fight scenes where it's just punching. I want fight scenes where we figure out more about the characters. And the funny thing is, it's not even a fight scene. It's her just standing there when I think the other girl is trying to snipe it out of orbit. Like, I get that it's probably not a fight scene, but you know what? It's counted as one. Ah.
So here, what do you think about this, Edwin? I feel like I said, the anime fans that like that type of content are going to be totally fine with the more anime nature of the beginning, first half, most of the show, whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
But to me, it almost feels like, even if you don't like it necessarily, I feel like it's almost, this might be a controversial take.
Mm.
Certain, for example, like Tarantino movies, and I stand by this. I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but I think that a lot of times, like 2/3 of his movies are kind of boring. Thinking particularly about
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
what's the one before that?
Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight. I think the Hateful Eight was mostly a pretty boring movie, but that's okay. I'm okay with it being boring, because boring isn't bad to me. And I'm not saying, I mean, this isn't a one-to-one comparison, but in order to achieve the satisfaction of the final third of that movie, there needs to be a lot of buildup. It doesn't play a traditional arc of plot or whatever. There's like so much buildup, so it's like an explosion of, when you see it. I mean, there's something like in your mind, like spoilers again, I guess, but like in Django, which I think Django is more entertaining all the way through, but like at the
Yes.
end scene of that movie is so rewarding when you get there. You're like,
Yes.
holy shit, your brain is exploding because it's so awesome. I feel like Evangelion, it kind of is similar to that in that like you're doing a lot of the groundwork. You're building the foundation of this ending, which some people will say, well, a story should be good all the way through. It shouldn't just be built in order to serve the ending. And I can agree with that in a lot of cases. I guess that is up to the individual on whether or not you like the building blocks to get there and how you feel about it. And I think that's what it sounds like to me, is that you're rightfully maybe confused about whether or not those building blocks are worth it to you, particularly in the fact that you're not an anime fan anymore. So those building blocks are particularly off-putting in a way.
I have three different prongs that I want to hit the argument from. And of course, it's going to be the obvious specter that looms over this near. Another one is going to be the Tarantino part, and then why it's different for Evangelion. Tarantino, you are not wrong. Those movies can be boring. But the thing that pulls me through the fact that nothing is happening is that the dialogue for that one is always just so juicy and punchy, like only Tarantino can do, that I never feel bored because I'm just hanging on every next word. Near Automata's A run, pretty much nothing happens. All you have are questions. But to me, I'm not really paying attention to most of that because it's the flashy combat and the music that was really pulling me through. Evangelion, you can be boring, you can be bad, but you need to have at least that one hook that keeps pulling me through. And for me, the problem is that Evangelion did not have that one hook in the first half to make me keep watching. If I didn't have such respect for your opinion and my love for Metal Gear and Nier, I would have dropped this in like the first 2 or 3 episodes. So for me, there was nothing in the first part that had me going, ah, yes, this is what I want to keep watching. Unless I wanted to make a joke that I love Pen Pen enough to keep watching him. Like, that's
Mm.
about all I can pull.
So that makes sense then to me, at least, because so let's say there's a spectrum here. There's you with the lowest tolerance of anime.
Yeah.
There's me, and then there's like the average, more typical, and I don't mean that in a negative way, anime fan who will watch every episode of Naruto and think that it's great and they love the filler aspect. So for the typical anime fan, there's very little ask, even if
Yeah.
it's a lot or, could be perceived as filler. I guess in a way you could look at it in the fact that Evangelion, in comparison to its contemporaries, is still much better in that department. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. The other thing that literally just clicked in my mind as you were saying that, of course, I have problems with the certain way that it handles, well, at least the show handles horniness, because I'll mention what I mean by the certain distinction. The way that the show handles horniness, it always bothers me because I'm thinking, what does this add? We already know that Shinji is a barely budding teenager, so of course he's going to be horny. I get it. But the fact that you put a comedy track underneath it tells me, oh, you're not really supposed to take this seriously to try to understand Shinji more. You're just supposed to be here and laugh. Ha, look, the girl's naked. And Shinji's like, ah, let me not look at her. And he's being called Baka. Isn't it funny? Like, that is what ends up bothering me. I already forgot the point when I was going
Well,
with this, but I will mention the end of Eva with what I mean by that. Oh, now I remember what my point was, is that the point with the comedic pervy bits are so jarring to me because then you have the teacher who God, these names escape me. I can only remember Shinji. The caretaker that they had, her relationship with the guy who was spying on them was such a cool thing because it felt really mature. Whenever they're making out in the elevator and she just pushes him away, or the one sex scene where it does also feels like it's trying to cut budget by just having the show of the nightstand, all of that felt so adult instead of how most anime treats sex, which is just like, yeah, I don't know, it does it flippantly. But it's weird because those are the complaints that I have for the show. But of course, the hospital scene when Shinji just reveals Asuka's chest out, like that had me uncomfortable just for a little bit, but then the fact that they use it to reestablish just how fucked up Shinji is when it comes to connecting to other people, even though that's the most graphic thing across the show and the movie, is it weird that I still felt like it was done tastefully? That's
Mm.
the weird thing. It's the most graphic thing. Like he's literally holding his own cum, but for some reason that one feels like it fits more than whenever you have the other horny shit that has the comedic beat underneath it.
Well, part of me feels like, I don't know. Again, I think the last time I watched Evangelion was maybe a year and a half ago, so maybe
Mm,
I'm misremembering some stuff. But I remember, I feel like some of that stuff that you're talking about is like, oh, it's the horniness with the joke music underneath.
mm,
I feel like there's almost, it's saying a point of like, look at how, this is a joke, haha. And then we get a scene like the hospital scene, and it's like, yo, actually, a lot of anime will treat this like a joke. And throughout the series, we realize, like, oh shit, there's a lot more going on here. I mean, man, I always don't know what to think about the scene with Misato when in End of Evangelion, where she like manipulates him and kisses him. Dude, that scene is like, I don't even know what to think about that. But it's clear that like through, maybe this is a way to look at it. The
mm.
Evangelion is kind of like a gradient of like starting tropey and then realizing these tropes don't make sense, or almost makes a mockery of them, in the fact that it's like, oh yeah, Misato is the hot caretaker that all the boys want to be with and whatever. And then in the final act of the entire story, you're like, yo, what the fuck? Like, she's actually using this to her advantage. I mean, she's using it, you could argue, for the greater good of saving the fucking planet.
Mm.
But it really turns your perspective of how the trope that they used on its head when it's actually applied. So, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking about these things here, but
No.
it's definitely an interesting aspect of it.
Dustin, I'm telling you right now, you fixed it. You fixed it. The idea that it's supposed to be this thing that plays it as a joke and then only for it to come back and go, no, 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 but this is actually fucked up. Shit, you fixed it. Okay.
Well,
Congrats. You fixed the problem in my head.
here's the thing that's so interesting to me about anime and like the progression of anime. There's a joke meme of an actual quote from Hayao Miyazaki where he says anime was a mistake. And people think that he's referring to like either his own work or something, but he's like, I think that some of these OGs, I mean Miyazaki much more so than Hideteki
Oh yeah.
Anno, but
Mhm.
they look at what's happened to this industry. For example, here's a stat that I saw on TikTok the other day. So it may not be true, but it sounds true.
I'm
Is
sorry. I'm sorry. Just the sentence stat on TikTok. I'm
the
sorry.
stat on TikTok. I believe it though, because I've seen it. I've just never connected the dots that 50% of all anime that's been created was made in the last 10 years. 50% from 2021 to 2011, half of all anime was made. So the commercialization, the serialization, the tropism of anime, it is so fucking tired. And that's why it's hard for me, even as I struggle to call myself an anime fan. I make jokes like Holly watches a lot of anime. I'll come downstairs.
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, I'm looking for an anime. I'm really looking for something that's a little different. I'd love for it to be about kids in high school.
Mhm.
And, it's a joke because every anime is like, unless it's like, well, no, even the fantasy anime, like My Hero Academia or whatever, is about kids in high school. They just happen to be superheroes or whatever.
Mm.
So it's telling that maybe Anno was already seeing the tropes of his industry and wanted to turn them on their head. And he was kind of a forerunner in this idea. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass. I'm thinking out loud now.
No, 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 you're good. You're on to something. I'm starting to think, what if the problem is that he was just too early? Because, for example, there are some TV shows that were early on in the golden age of TV that you can look at and think, man, if you were just shorter, you could have been better. But the problem is that they were too early. There weren't exactly cable TV like AMC. You only had HBO to be able to go to your show and have a shorter run than 24 episodes. What if it's just that it's that same situation for Evangelion, where he was just too early with these two cool concepts, where they were basically like, you need to fill in this amount of episodes. So the problem is that way too much of it feels like it's wheel spinning, where it's like, okay, how many angels are we going to have? We're going to have 46. No, we're going to have 16. Shit, how many episodes do you need me to fill? Okay, fine. We're going to bump it back up to 18. What if that's just what it is, where the problem is that this was still too early within the medium to be able to tell the story as concisely as he wanted to? And for me, now that I've said this out loud, isn't that what happened with Death Note? Death Note had its own little short amount of story, but then Shonen Jump told him, hey, we need you to stretch this out more. He said no, and Shonen Jump said, fuck you, you're doing it. And he went, fine. And then that's why Death Note is like half bad. Am I
Right.
onto something?
Well, I mean, I could think of another anime. I mean, it's the most normie of normie animes, but Sword Art Online has the exact same thing where it's like there's a weird second act that feels pretty lame. But I mean, maybe that's just, there's a lot of Sword Art Online fans that follow that show religiously past that. But no, like I told you, the thing that really sucks to me about anime, and we touched on this, but it is so commercialized. Like, for example, we're on the final season of Attack on Titan right now. And it has done such a disservice to the show in that they are really trying to line it up with the manga in order to end them at the same time, in order to do it strategically to sell more manga. That the dip in quality of the show is so, not in its story, in its animation, is so incredibly significant. It is heartbreaking to me, which the first half of the final season, I loved the story, but there's parts where it's like, you fuckers partially ruined this in the pursuit of the manga and lining it up and the money aspect. And it's just, I get it. These things exist for money. There's this weird connection between art, a story, whatever, and the commercial aspect. They have to go hand in hand, as much as it sucks. But it's like, when you start the show and it has like this amazingly incredible animation, you have dudes flying through the air in this beautiful fashion. And then by the end, you have like this giant CG Titan that looks like someone made it in Blender the day before or something. It's just like, it sucks. So the industry is messed up. And I think you bring up a good point that maybe he was too early in these observations. And we've seen him as a creator back away. I think he did like one or two other anime projects after Evangelion. And then he focused more on live action in that he did Shin Godzilla, which is incredible.
Ooh.
And then he did return to Evangelion, but it was in the form of films and the rebuild, which the rebuild is a whole different ball game. And now he's doing I think he was like a producer on Shin Ultraman, and he's doing another live action thing. So it's complicated, I guess.
There was one direction that I wanted to go in, because here's the thing. My anime history is something that is filled with a whole bunch of gaps. Attack on Titan was one where I just, once again, I wanted to just cause myself bodily harm from the first few episodes of Attack on Titan because it felt so tropey. However, once the first wall went down and all the way up to the courtroom scene, I dare say is perfection. There is not a single piece of fat that I can see there. The entire events, from Eren losing his arm to finally becoming a Titan, Misaka's story. Wait, I don't know. I'm probably, you know what, screw it. I'm just gonna keep. Yeah, thank you.
Keep going.
Mikasa.
You were almost there.
I tripped myself up and I told myself not to think about it, and I still did anyways. Mikasa's entire story about how she, I think, is the only Chinese fool or Japanese fool, all that shit with her mom, that is so fucking cool. Eren being insane and taking out those people as like a child, all that shit was so cool. And then the second half, just, I couldn't care. Even though they won me over for once, by the time I got to the second season, I watched all of that, it just dipped even further. That I just have a Walking Dead rule, where if you waste an entire season of my time, I'm out. And it just actually kind of saddens me now that it I hate seeing things that totally had the potential to be super awesome just fall to the wayside because of external things. I hate the fact that there are some things that you can look at artistically that probably won't make money right out the gate, but there are some things that if you put your heart and soul into it and they are good, even if you don't have the huge pop at the beginning, there are people who will grab it and evangelize it. The Leftovers is probably bigger now than when it was airing, and that's probably because everyone who actually watched it at the time, or were told by someone who watched it at the time, love it and understand the artistry that is on display. That even if it didn't bring in the ratings, the fact that it had 3 seasons and a complete story is enough to live on for generations to come. And it infuriates me that there's way too many times that the short-sighted goal of like, oh no, we can get our huge pop, leave, and then never worry about the latent revenue that can come afterwards. That I think is what bothers me, because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, is anime just not there at the point to realize you can have a condensed story, toss it out, leave it out there, and just wait. You don't need the whole sales of the manga or the top 10 voted favorite character on Shonen Jump to be able to make something that's worthwhile. Am I wrong, or
I don't know how much I can really speak to this just from a point of ignorance about how the industry works. I think that
same?
I wonder if the redeeming aspect that we can see is in anime films,
Yes.
right? Just because they can have their budget and succeed, or I mean, maybe not succeed,
Hmm.
and not be bound to a ongoing ratings game, so to say. So the problem is, I mean, it's just that I feel like there are not enough anime films. I mean, I guess there's a lot. Maybe I'm just only paying attention to the ones that really make a big splash.
Hmm.
But the problem too is that so many of them of the anime films are tied to existing series, which
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of. But
Yep.
so you mentioned Perfect Blue, right?
Yes.
I need to watch that. I might watch that tonight, actually, because I think I mentioned in one of the Discords that I'd watched Millennium Actress and Paprika.
Hmm. Dustin, I can tell you right now, Perfect Blue kicks so much ass that I have no reservations about saying that I love it. And you can see that even with the amount of love that I have for the end of Ava, that I still have conflictions about it. Perfect Blue is something that you can tell that this person, Satoshi Kon, he hates anime too. Like, there is
Mm.
specifically one scene where there is a door that opens up to a grocery store, and it's like the most over the top anime character ever. Like, their eyes are 70% of this character's face, and that's plastered on the door. The door opens up and it shows one of the characters that he drew, and you're just like, look, I know that you're doing it. You're really insulting anime by just like, no, this is the exaggerated style that they go for, and this is my style. Satoshi Kon hates anime as much as probably I do, but Perfect Blue just does not feel like it has any of the stench, any of the complaints that I have about anime. It kicks ass. Highly recommended. Go look at the steelbook and then weep a little bit because it's fucking gorgeous. Which, by the way, that's hilarious. I actually bought the steelbook sight unseen because the steelbook was that gorgeous,
Whoa.
having no idea what the movie was. I imported it from France.
Holy shit. Edwin, I've got
Yeah.
to. You may already know this fact. I don't want to be the Lord of the Rings fact guy right now that is annoying during the movie.
Oh, no. I don't know the facts, but I mean, other people don't, so have at it.
Okay, I've never seen Perfect Blue, but when I was learning about that director, I learned that Darren Aronofsky, the director of Black Swan, Noah, Mother, whatever, he bought the rights for that movie before Black Swan came out. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
Now, I saw Black Swan when it came out over a decade ago,
Yes.
and I've not seen Perfect Blue, but I'm very, very interested in that story, in the fact that you've seen both of them, right?
Yes.
So is it basically that he made an Americanized live action Perfect Blue and just didn't tell anybody and just bought the rights and swept it under the rug?
So thematically, okay, wait, do you know anything about Perfect Blue or no?
I know a little bit, but maybe it's best to shy away, especially if I was seriously, last night I was thinking about watching it and then didn't.
Happily grab Holly. Just this is gonna be a good one, okay? The thing is that I get from the starting point, both of those movies are going to be similar. It is a character having problems with their identity and that identity trying to reclaim control. So that I can understand. To be fair, Aronofsky could have easily gotten away with making Black Swan and not have paid off for the rights for Perfect Blue, because that's, as a concept, is you can't really copyright a concept. So
Right.
it might have been just him overall going, you know what, I'm going to drop some money in your cup as thank you because I totally stole this from you. Like, I
Right.
get it, but Perfect Blue, I think, is better because whenever I think about Black Swan, I think, yeah, that was a cool movie. Whenever I think Perfect Blue, I think this is artwork and this is what feels like a masterclass in editing and transitions and using the medium itself to tell the story more than what you can even put on screen could do.
Right. That's so interesting in just the creative world right now, which I mean, I know we're off topic, but I've seen this pop up recently in the music industry where it's like you'll see some weird credit on a song. Okay, this is a very specific example, but I'm just thinking about this recently. There's a new song from Machine Gun Kelly, which he's doing like pop punk stuff now. And one of the writers on it is Matt Thiessen, who was the singer and songwriter of the band Reliant K, which some people, if you followed like the Christian music scene, know who they are. Some people don't, or they know the song Be My Escape. Dude, the verses of that song are exactly Be My Escape, like to a T. Not to a T, but so suspiciously close that you got to wonder if either Machine Gun Kelly or one of his, whoever his team was like, yeah, we should just give him some money just in case so we don't get sued. It's just such a weird thing. I researched it and I was like, I couldn't find any details, but it's just a weird thing to me. With, I guess, Black Swan, you know, like you said, it's different enough, but at the same time, it's like all the people that talk about Black Swan being this incredible movie, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are like, you should really actually watch Perfect Blue then because it's better.
I can count myself in that category. I can say right now, Perfect Blue is just the look. So of course, I'm doing a podcast to like what, double digits. That's nothing. For you, the fact that you have Handsome Phantom and Last Stand Media, I can tell you right now, this shit will probably hit harder for you because this movie has only gained relevance the further time goes on.
Mm.
And I can't believe how good. It's insane that this movie was hyper specific to only a certain group of celebrities in the 90s and now has just grown to apply to everyone. It is art. It
So are
is
you saying in
art.
like like a parasocial relationship standpoint?
Yes.
Interesting.
No, that's the thing. I would say cut the questioning there. I hope that I can give this one recommendation back. You gave me the end of Evangelion, which that look, I can tell you right now, whenever the Blu-rays come out, I am assuredly buying End of Evangelion. Even because, like, however I feel about the show, I can assure that I am buying End of Evangelion and putting in my collection. I might buy the show too. And you know what? I think I'll probably hold my rewatch until then. But I can assure you that End of Eva is just something that I'm going to hold on for the rest of my life. Perfect Blue is another one. I hope I can. This is my thank you. This is my thank
Mm.
you. Perfect
Okay.
Blue.
Well then, I mean, if I watch Perfect Blue, then you'll just have to have me on again and we can talk about that.
Listen.
Have you done a Perfect Blue show yet?
So the way that I usually structure is, I don't expect you to listen to it. Trust me, I don't expect anyone to listen to it. The main show is literally just reviewing whatever I've already watched or played for the last 2 weeks. Perfect Blue has already come up twice, but pretty much it's me just gushing and never going into more details. So trust me, I do love it enough that if you say that you need to discuss it, I will happily oblige.
Okay. Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
So
What other Ava stuff though before whatever? I'm good for if we have a few more things we want to discuss.
oh yeah, no, trust me. I was about to start winding it down. So, Evangelion, there's at least one question that I have. The rebuilds, just the question is what?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um I don't know how to feel about the rebuilds. To be perfectly honest, I've only seen them one time. the 3
Mm,
out of 4 that are out.
mm,
The first rebuild is very faithful to the beginning of the series.
mhm,
And the second one starts to deviate pretty heavily. To by the third, it is completely different.
mm.
And it's very frustrating right now because the fourth film, the final film of Evangelion, is, I don't know if it's still in Japanese theaters, but it was in Japanese theaters very recently.
Mhm.
And so people in Japan have watched it, they've gotten closure. It's supposed to be fantastic, and I'm very frustrated because I can't watch it. I've heard that there's people that have watched shady illegal versions
Mhm.
online, which there's part of me that's like, I almost would want to do that, but
No,
I have
hold off.
I just
Hold off.
I need to have it in the best. I think you're like me where it's like you always talk about like this is going in the theater room. I would never be able to finish my Evangelion journey with a 720p cam rip. Like it needs to be the way it's intended. So,
Dustin, this is news to you, but if somehow people have actually still kept listening to me, which I don't get, I was complaining about a show that I had watched called Devs, right? And it's
oh,
just
dude, that's a great show.
Oh, you like it?
Dude, it was great. I love that show.
Oh my God. I almost hated it. I almost did.
Mm.
I really liked almost everything about it, but I hated the main actress so much that she brought down almost everything around me. But
I can
that's
see that. Yeah.
so okay, so in other words, if we can agree with that, then you know what? I probably like it more than you're thinking right now. So, but what I mean from bringing that up is that I am now to a point where streaming even bothers me because Devs was so gorgeous with the way that it handles its particles that I can tell with the compression that Hulu has, with the fact that it's only in HD and not even 4K, that I can look at it and I can see the noise compression that is going on whenever you saw the machine. So,
Oh.
uh, like, that's the thing. I am starting to get to the point where even streaming is not enough for me.
Well,
So,
to be fair, that Hulu is absolute trash when it comes to streaming and compression. It's embarrassing how much worse they are than literally every other streaming service. So it's unfortunate that that show was on there.
I would say it's probably Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus. Like these are the trio of, oh wow, this is great quality, right?
Yeah, I actually have become so much of a snob that I only, if I can, rent things from the Apple TV app
Damn.
because to my eye have the best compression when you can. I mean, if it's on Netflix, I don't know. I have paid for things just to watch them in 4K, even though I can watch them for free somewhere else just because I'm an idiot.
Trust me, I love my shelf and I will continue to buy Blu-rays and 4Ks because I make it a game. I have one shelf. I am not getting another shelf. If I like something enough, I must dislike something less than that to replace that spot in the shelf. So at this point, I think I'm hard in on streaming if I just really just cannot bear to cost that amount. But if I can see like a Blu-ray copy or a 4K copy for $10 or below, fuck it. I can usually buy it and then sell it off again if I don't feel like it's worthwhile for the collection. So trust me, I'm right there with you. One of my favorite examples is bringing people into my theater room, showing them the third to last episode of Game of Thrones and going, hey, do you remember all this fucking horrible noise that was going
Ugh.
on? Here's the 4K disc. Can you now tell what the hell's going on? Yes, this is why streaming sucks.
Yeah. Dude, especially, I mean, it's so frustrating. Dude, this is going to come up for me with E3 that
Mm.
I want to watch stuff as it
Oh,
happens, but I also can't. Dude, it's like PlayStation does this. They did that
yes.
big what was the last game that they just, oh, Horizon.
Horizon.
When they do the stream, it's like trash. It looks
Yeah.
so bad. You're better off just waiting until they upload the 4K version, but no one can wait. Me
The hype
included.
cycle.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, E3 for me is all about the pomp and circumstance. Like, if I really care about the way something looks, I'll probably look at it after. But the E3 is the one example where I'm like, you guys are dropping enough nuclear bombs here that I will watch. But if it's something like a state of play for a game that I probably already know my opinion about, I'm probably going to abstain. Like the Horizon one, I didn't watch it. I jumped in for like 2 minutes. I was like, this is Horizon, and then turned it off. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'll just wait to hear what the Sacred Boys say about this.
Mhm.
So, all right. I think we're finally at the final part of what do I feel about Evangelion. I will say, talking to you has definitely made my ability to want to love it increase. But I don't think I'm there yet because some of the things that you did say makes me think that one, I'm not crazy about my complaints, and two, the fact that there is stuff at the beginning that you saw that does seem to hint at the end. I feel like I need to rewatch it yet one more time. Look at me copping out again
Oh,
about whether if I can answer the question on this. I think I need to rewatch it again and see if there is something at the beginning that can pull me through now that I know that there is a direction. So, shit. The answer, I guess, is was it worth it? I don't know. I'll figure out when I buy the Blu-rays.
you might be waiting a while. Who knows how long that Netflix deal is for the exclusive?
I think it comes out this year. At
Is
least
there?
from NGE Blu-ray.
Whoa, you're right. I did not know this. You taught me something.
That- Look, Dustin, man, I know physical releases because whenever I saw those final two episodes and End of Ava, I was thinking, End of Ava, look, I had no qualms about End of Ava whatsoever to the point that I went on Amazon and tried to look for the Blu-ray and all I found were overpriced DVDs. After that, searched it up and yeah, 2021 at some point this year, those Blu-rays will come out. And you know what? I know what you're going to say. Don't worry. I will absolutely ping you whenever I see it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm looking at the promotional image. It's like coming to Blu-ray in 2021 for the first time in North America. I feel like maybe I did. Do you really know something if you forget it and then can't recall it? But now I feel like maybe I did know this at one point. But yeah, I'm definitely I'll buy those. I'll buy the best edition that they have to offer. It's disappointing that they don't have 4K, but I love watching anime or anime films in 4K. We've talked about the
Yes.
Akira disc,
Oh,
which I still haven't gotten my HDR version. I'm very upset.
listen, it's time to pull out the Twitter sword. Just
Dude,
don't-
I've been saving, now that I have an audience on Twitter, I'm like, I got to be careful. I don't want to be the dude that complains regularly to get what he wants. But
this is one. This is one. I feel like this is the right one. You don't need to like, oh man, Target had a longer line. I'm gonna tweet out in the middle of the line and hope that they
Right.
put me up to the front. Like, I feel like this one they fucked up so badly that another bit of heat is probably better because how many listen, it's already fucked up that I don't know how in the distribution process you went from one country to another country and thought, you know what, them stupid Americans don't need HDR, right? Like I that already is enough is so baffling to me because that version already exists. It's not like they had to include HDR for the American release.
right. Yeah, it's disappointing. I'm frustrated. Maybe I haven't tried calling them, so I'll maybe do that. But, you mentioned how much you care about physical releases. I'm sure that you're a big fan of Blu-ray.com.
Yes, I check there every once in a while. I go in and every time that I see them that they drop new stuff, I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
No joke. You want to know how insane I am about physical releases? I had no interest in watching A Quiet Place Part 2, but because someone in the Discord dropped the Steelbook, I was like, that is a gorgeous ass Steelbook. Am I about to go to theaters right now to go watch it to decide if I want the Steelbook? And the answer was probably yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about steelbooks. That's the interesting part. I do like physical releases, but
Dustin, stay away. Stay away.
stay
oh
away.
my god, it's
That's
drugs.
dude,
It's
I've seen the
drugs.
obsession. To me, the few steelbooks I have, I'm like, fuck, these are different than my other discs, and I hate them for it.
And the funny thing is, you know how you fix that? Getting more. Like I said, it's a
Yep.
fucking drug. Get away. Get away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've cut down. My physical movie buying is so low, which I actually like the idea that you have of like having one shelf. I don't know if I'd quite do that, but I like at this point now, I'm trying to think of the last movie I bought. I think it was the Lord of the Rings 4K collection. But I'm very selective at this point where it's like, I know it's better on disc than even streaming it from Apple, but
Yep.
I also know that there's certain movies that I'm like, I'm only going to watch this one time or two times in the next 10 years. So is it really worth it? The Lord of the Rings, though, I'll buy
Yes.
any. They could release a new version tomorrow and I'll buy it again.
Trust me. The idea with the shelf is that after enough time where I've watched enough movies physically, I want that shelf. That here's the thing. I do the same thing for games too. There is a game shelf that is it. If there is any new games that I want to keep, I need to take out the weakest link to make space for that. I basically want it to be that after a couple of years of doing this, if someone were to ever hit me with like, hey, what's your top 100 games or 100 movies? I could literally just take a picture of the shelf and go, in any order, here you go. So that is my thought process with the shelf.
Damn, it's
Mhm.
interesting.
All right. So, Dustin, I've already taken up enough of your time. Thank you for talking Evangelion with me. I now feel differently and even more positively. So,
Damn.
there's one thing that I do want to ask because I was kind of hoping I was going to come to a conclusion, but don't worry, that's fine. If I do like it, where do I stand on Weebery?
Hmm. It's so complicated.
I know,
The
that's the thing.
modern day weeb. I mean, it's funny. I joke about being the king of weebs, but like I see specifically. I don't know if you go on TikTok at all, but
No.
I see the type of people that are at the Demon Slayer movie
Mm.
and that type of weebery, and I'm like, I do not identify with that at all. I feel like I'm the low key weeb. You know, I have the occasional anime shirt that's tasteful, but I'm not wearing a Naruto headband around my neck. You know, like, so I don't know. You got to decide. There's different elements and different variabilities of and levels of weebery that you want to condone to. You know.
I like that we didn't definitively say yes, so I can continue being the hater that I am.
I have to just accept, though, as much as I don't identify with the modern day weebs, I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan, so I'm in the camp. Like, there's no way around it.
It's okay, Dustin. When I went to go see the Near concert in Chicago at the beginning of 2020, I just remember walking in there. Here's the thing, I was thinking it was going to be an orchestra, right? Which it is. But I mean, the idea that you're going to the theater to see an orchestra. Me and my wife, I dressed up in like a very nice not sweatsuit. I wore dress pants, a dress shirt, like a belt, nice shoes. My wife wore a nice dress. We get here and we see people in sweaters and t-shirts or cosplaying, and we were like, "Wow, we really missed the mark here, didn't we?"
Edwin,
And that was one of the few moments that I was like, "Man, maybe I'm just not welcome here."
I literally had the exact same experience, but not with Nier. I went to the Kingdom Hearts orchestra thing at Heinz Hall in Pittsburgh with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, and I wore a suit. And my friend Phil of the HP podcast, he wore a suit. Our wives came, they dressed up, and there were a few other people dressed up, but there's a lot of Kingdom Hearts and Weeb t-shirts. And I was like, you fucking degenerates. When you go to the orchestra, you wear a suit, period. So it's very funny to hear that you've had the exact same experience as me.
Oh my god. I've committed myself to, if this concert comes back anywhere on the Western Hemisphere, I will show up. And I can tell you right now, I didn't know. Well, I didn't put thought into what I'll wear. Hearing that that was your story too, I can tell you right now that I'm going to continue to wear those outfits so I can show them the
Yeah,
fuck up.
that's right. You should.
Okay, all right. Good place to end. What do you think?
I think it's a good place to end. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's refreshing because I talk about video games for upwards of 8 to 12 hours a week in a microphone. So it's nice to talk about something different every once in a while. So I appreciate it.
No problem. Trust me, that's what I like to do, at least with the special episodes. I like to bring people in to talk about things that they like already, because one, it's easier to convince them of it, but two, because if they like it, you know that they're going to have a passion for saying it. So, first off, thank you for Evangelion. At this point, I know I'm not going to outright regret my time with it. So, thank you. Big W to you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, and with that, that's the episode. End card. Hey, look at you. You got to the end of the episode. From episode 0 to the day that I finally get lazy and cancel the show, a big thank you to Joey Rawlings for providing the perfect name for the show. Be sure to always give him thanks, either out loud as you're listening to this, or you can just send him a thank you tweet at boogeyman117 _ That's boogeyman117, IE instead of Y, double O. Be sure that it's an underscore, not a dash, 117.